Why don't we start the meeting? Is Dan Coughlin on? Yeah, I see him now. Okay. Let's see if I got this. So why don't we start the meeting? Present are Bill McGowan, Wayne Sawchuk, Dan Coughlin, and Carol Rowe. So our first order of business will be to look at our next meeting, which will be 12, let's see, is that the 30th? Is that correct?
The 30th?
No, no, don't look at me.
Hold on.
Let's see here.
The 20th?
The 20th, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
That so far is okay for me. I don't know about you guys.
I think it's okay. I'm
Yeah, it's good for me.
going away on the 20th, but I don't think it's in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Fine for me.
All right.
At
So we
9:30,
have-
Bill?
Yes, 9:30,
Okay,
yes.
9:30. Thank you.
So our first thing is abatements.
Yep.
Is Brian on as well?
He is in his car,
Okay.
so he said he would join it from his car.
All right.
When he could.
Did you send this previously, Carol? Or by
Did I
email?
say? Yes,
The data? Okay, so I just want to go ahead.
I did. I sent 3 of them initially in the first email when I set the meeting up, and then we got 2 more after that. One of them was Daniel Hackett, which is 7:34. He's gonna be on the call, but I don't see him. 7:34 Jerusalem.
Yeah, and I think Brian wanted to be on it because of that, I believe that is where they had the sewer line break.
Yes.
Well, should we start with one and see what we're,
Sure. Which one do you want to start with?
it doesn't matter.
All right, I have Ken Paul here, 135 Nichols Road.
Yeah.
It says here, we just recently moved into our newly built home and discovered our landscape installation company watering the new sod bushes and trees with hoses attached to the house by mistake. They should have been using the hoses for the well water and pump. We believe about 75% of the water during this period was used in this way, and therefore we did not use the sewer system. To abate $376.56. Their
That's not
average
our
water
problem.
bill,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
their average water bill since they moved in was $62.76. So,
But they just moved in though, right?
yes, June.
And when did this occur?
He said it was between June and the beginning of October.
I think that's not our responsibility. In
Yeah.
terms of if they had a well, there should have been communications. If, if you had a couple of months to determine, I guess they just, the owner just said, I thought we were on the water, on the well. And somehow at some point said, oh, you guys shouldn't be using this water, you should be using this water.
Mhm.
I just.
Yeah, I agree. I'd go after the landscaper, whoever did this.
And the owner has certain responsibilities. I mean. So I vote to deny the application for abatement.
Yeah, and I will agree on that too.
Okay.
Next one.
Next one I have is Lisa Gillis. She is abating, her request is abating the quarterly sewer usage of $2,238.44 due to a newly installed irrigation system.
So what did the newly installed irrigation system relate to the water?
Well, their water bill previously, their average was $28.77. And the quarterly bill was $2,835 or $2,281.44 for their sewage. So that's like a really big difference there.
So they obviously didn't install a separate water meter, and I'm wondering why did this occur now and not previously in previous years? Was it a new installation or?
Yes, newly installed irrigation system. Homeowner is the sole resident, and this was from September, well, June, I guess, June to, or July to June, July, August, and September, I guess. But apparently, as you said, they probably did not install because it doesn't show anything here about a new meter being installed.
And do they have any information about a well that was put in there? Because we,
It does say, it says their new meter will be installed on 11/10. This was before
11/10 of this year.
of this year, yes. but
So
this-
they're
this
responsible for
usage-
everything up to
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know how we were, I mean, obviously, if they were putting in a new meter, obviously they knew they needed to have a separate meter.
Right,
Or at least at some point they realized they had to have a separate meter.
yep,
and secondly, we basically were on a drought. We had a watering ban, a full watering ban
Yeah.
for a good portion of the dates that she had. So I don't know. I'd make a motion to reject the application for abatement.
Yeah, I'll concur with that as well.
okay.
I was just, Wayne, I was gonna say that. I thought we couldn't water on site. I know my lawn died. So
Right.
unless you had a well.
Right.
Okay, hold on one moment. Okay. Next one is Judith Flint from 29 Little Harbor Road. She is requesting ooh, 14, the usage. She didn't, all right, she's another one. She put in a new irrigation system that didn't go into the sewer. So the second meter was in place as of 9/22. And the bill that she received was 10/3.
Okay, so the bill she received was would have been into the period of the 9/22.
Yep,
There's a 30-day lapse between the bills.
yep.
So I can't see where we can do anything on this either. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everybody here has been putting in new water meters, or not, excuse me, putting in irrigation systems. And neglecting to put in a separate water meter. I mean, we almost should, as a reminder to people, send out something to folks saying, or put it on our website that says, listen, if you're putting in an irrigation system, make sure you get a new water meter, a new and separate water meter from your house.
Yes, because in April, her sewer bill was 137. Then in June, the end of June, it was $1,200 or $1,300. And then in October, it went up $1,700. So,
Well, again, to Wayne's point earlier, you know, we weren't supposed to be watering anyway in the town. You know, there's no outside watering.
right.
Well. I make the motion to deny the application for abatement for this property.
And I agree on that too.
Okay. Was Flint. All right.
By the way, if anybody is on hold there for that own these properties and wanted to say something, they certainly can.
No, but Brian just popped in, so I'm gonna put him in.
Okay.
Let's see. Then we have Bruce and Sheila Sinclair. They're at 552 Jerusalem. They changed their meter on 4/8/22, but never updated the account. They were overcharged by $198.74. They have updated the town's billing system, so the account should be accurate going forward.
So that was that 198, was that water?
Sewer.
I'm not sure how you, how did the, what was the update? What was previous to the update?
Let's see. So their sewer usage. According to them, they only used 3,400 CF. They want to abate 1,900 of that usage.
Did the water department give them an abatement?
They typically don't.
Let's see.
Or if it was just a billing error?
It's
they
in here
may-
that says she did. And usually she puts notes in if she gave them abatement.
Yeah, I think we need some more information on this one, because if it's a water department error, we should have them saying it's an error,
Okay,
something like that. I mean, it's not that I'm not believing this lady, it's that I just want to be sure that the water department is indeed at fault here. And if they are, then we could do something.
okay. All
Even
right,
if it's just a billing error, that's fine. So,
okay. I'll get more information on that one.
And it might have been, you know, the plumber put the meter in probably, or maybe someone in the family, and just didn't tell anybody,
Right.
maybe, you know.
So the last one is 734 Jerusalem. He did say he was gonna be on the call, but I don't see him.
yeah, if he's not on the call, then I'm not sure I want to even bring it up, but I think it's, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the, where the guy was excavating and broke into the water and sewer pipes.
Yeah, that's the same address. I'm just not sure what the basis of the abatement claim is. If it's because of that break or if it's something else.
Well,
So that
it's,
was the reason. I know you had some questions. I had some questions. And I don't know, you know, the number one.
he
question is-
did not get back to us as to provide more information.
Okay. And it, you know, usually the meters are at the house, but you know, in some cases, there's a meter pit at the street. The only way that all that flow, if that is, would have been captured if there was a pit down at the street, and I'm not sure of the situation out there. So that's the number one question I had. And
I don't know.
also, you know, they did it. So would you be willing to abate a flow that they caused?
Yeah, I'd go back to the guy operating the excavator. Give him the bill. So we'll see what happens. Let me see if he gets back to us, Carol. I guess-
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
wait on this one.
So that was that it?
I was trying to
That
find the
was-
one you were talking about previously. I believe Brenda submitted that on behalf of the, I'm just going by recollection. I thought
She did
on behalf
submit
of
it.
us.
On behalf of them, there's just no information in her notes saying that she abated any water issue.
Okay, yeah, and so I think it was a result of, they changed the water meter. You were reading a new value on a different water meter and it's, you know, so the water department isn't, is the one behind that abatement request.
Now, apparently, do they get billed from the Hingham? From Hingham, right? They get
Sure.
billed
Yeah, they're Aquarian.
their water, right? So that on what they gave us from 5/3 to 22 to 11/1/22, it just has 2 dates. Just those 2 quarters. So there's no real history, it seems, on what the sewer fees and stuff were for the previous 15, 20 years or so. It's only water. So I don't know how much they've been charged in the past. But anyway, I make a motion to deny the abatement request.
The
I would do that until we get more information from Brendan and Water.
Brenda. Okay, I'll request more information from Brenda.
And Carol, a couple of folks are trying to get in and they cannot. They're in waiting room, I guess.
Who would,
Well, one of them's Tom Flannery.
okay, do you want me to let him in right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have Cook Estate right after regional, so yes.
Okay, and who else?
Greg is on. He should be in the waiting list somewhere.
Yep, I got him.
And that's the only 2 I've gotten pieces from, so.
Okay,
So we're gonna go to regional now. Pardon me. And I'll ask Brian to say a few things in a moment, but I think we're waiting for the updated report from Woodard and Current, and I believe, not that I believe, I think there's a meeting today, Brian, with you and Rosemary.
Yeah, it's either today at 1:30 or it's tomorrow morning, I think. And I've asked the water folks to come along too, because I guess the basis of their design is the per capita per person flow usage, which is, that comes down to the flow, design flow for the areas. So just trying to nail down that number, and it looks, I sent you an excerpt from some email chain that
Yeah.
we're likely going to be somewhere around 64 gallons per person per day.
Okay. Yeah, all right, because I'm just, as I told Rosemary, we're getting a little bit of heat on getting a deliverable since it's been a couple of months now, so. If we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, that'll be good, so.
Is 64 gallons a day, even close? I mean, we're talking 110 gallons a day per bedroom and stuff. And, this is seems like it's a fourth of what it might even be. Brian, do you have some, notes or some information about how, what is our own sewer?
So you have Title V design flows, which are pretty excessive, and Dan could probably chime in with some more information, but the Title V flows are pretty excessive. They're not actual readings. The 64 gallons per person per day is based on actual meter readings and, minus kind of irrigation meetings.
Right, but what is Cohasset's? We have how many customers we have and how much, sewer is coming in that we're billing for. What's that number? What is our own town getting for average?
So the plant flow, the master meter at the plant gives you what our actual flow is coming into the plant on a daily basis. And in a perfect world, if there's no I&I, that would equally match up to everyone's water meters, right? Less the irrigation meters. So that's kind of the basis of the design they're going after is actual usage with the 64. And
so with that's actual for Cohasset today.
Yes. So that's we're going to go through the numbers and get the per capita, based on recent water readings, but it's likely going to be somewhere around 64.
And so now I'll ask a question about Brian and Dan. Would it be and maybe they're going to do this, I don't know, but would it be feasible to add some sort of factor to this to cover I&I and other things to make sure we don't have any issues?
Well, I is something that is always going to be there in some amount.
Right.
If this 64 includes that, which it sounds like it is, because the meter at the plant is going to take all of the water that's coming in and tell you how many gallons it is.
So
Not-
maybe I can interject a little too. We may be talking two different numbers too. Title V is based upon a max day. I think what the numbers you're talking about for 64 gallons per minute is an average day base. So, typically there's a peaking factor that you apply, and that captures typically, excessive infiltration or inflow, wet weather induced type of flows. But the max day is really what you use for design purposes for a lot of the features in your plant and collection system. You have to design to handle that peak flow. So the 64, I believe, is just going to be an average flow parameter. In other words, if you took all the flow going to the plant and just extended it evenly throughout the entire day, but that's not the way the flow comes in,
Right, so Dan is saying like, you design the pipes and you design the collection system for that peak flow because it needs to handle it, but as far as capacity goes at a plant, long-term kind of usage and capacity, you're looking at more of the average daily flow. That's what.
Well, you have to look at both because there are hydraulic limitations and process limitations at the plant relative to being able to treat peak flows. And there's also, an average flow is what you typically would see in the permit. Okay, so the 450,000 gallons per day that we're permitted for, that would be basically a 12-month moving average. Okay, but the plant itself has limitations on how much flow it can handle, beyond the average day on a max day base and also on a peak hour base. There's different processes and different limitations in terms of pumping and being able to treat it effectively to meet permit that go beyond the average day flow. In terms of the collection system, you have to handle a peak hour, which is even higher than the max day.
Okay.
So that's the way you design the collection system, so you don't have surcharging of services. But for the plant, you have to look at both numbers. You really can't just look at one.
And
So, I mean, I'll ask them to put some of that methodology when they come out with a report. But that's kind of the last value that they need to complete the report, Bill. And just one thing, Wayne, on the I&I. So I think what we're going to go for is probably a low pressure sewer system on this extension. And just, if you have a leaky pipe in a pressure system, obviously it's exfiltrating, not infiltrating. It's gravity where you have the issues, or maybe like, at your tanks or things like that.
There is still some II, and we see it sometimes in North Cohasset. There's a little bit of a blip for wet weather events, and that's basically that gravity portion that's running from the house to the pumping unit. Sometimes leaks, sometimes you get overflow into the tanks, and then sometimes people have extraneous flows connected, like sump pumps. So there's always a little bit of wet weather influence, but it's greatly reduced.
And Brian, can you ask Rosemary if they're doing the same for North Situate?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, is she doing something just for Cohasset's expansion up South Main Street, or is she doing something for?
No, this is it's for regional, but my understanding she's going to segment it as she did the last report 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So there'll be something, one of the districts would be the South Main Street extension, basically looking on either side, one side being the Gulf and the other side being whatever it is, to Mordecai Lincoln Road. And then there's another district that goes through North Situate, and a further district that goes down Hatherley to Border Street.
Mm-hmm. Now there's a little subdivision in Situate off of Howard Gleason Road there, coming off of 3A, that they most likely would sewer, which abuts the top of Ledgeway Drive and those properties there off of Brewster Road. I think it would really be not to our advantage to sewer that area, because the town next to us is going to have the sewer pipe literally right at our property line. And I think that's something that in the design part should be part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think once we get this report and I can, we share it with the board, of the town, I think the first order of business will we have Woodard and Curran come before us and say, okay, now what's here's what you have and what you need, and now how do you proceed, that kind of thing. So I think there'll be ample opportunity for us to review this.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Brian, on that? I think it's pretty much, we're just waiting for the report, in my opinion.
Yep, I'll circle back with emails after we meet with Rosemary.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Next up is Cook, and I know Tom, no, he's on. Okay, I see him.
Anyone else that needs to go on from Cook?
Yes, Carol, there's several folks that have not been invited in by you yet.
Okay,
So Steve Sullivan, Gene Livingston, Alicia Babcock.
they're not in the waiting room.
Okay. Well, I was having trouble with it before. I was getting a message, you have to be invited in by the host. They were having similar problems. I don't know how I got in, but they didn't.
All right, Steve Sullivan just came back on.
Okay. Hi, Steve. Steve, you there?
I'm here, sorry. Just got unmuted there. Just got in. Having a little
Did you
issue.
did you reboot everything, Steve, and come in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully the others will do that.
You have to, it's a public meeting.
Carol, if you see them coming into the waiting room, if you could just let them in.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, so I'll give a brief update. I'm not on site, but Steve is, and he's met recently with Paul Davis. So last time we spoke, we did not have a national grid connection for the gas for the generator. We still don't have that. We still don't have a good indication from the gas company when they can make that connection. If anybody has any ideas for connections with National Grid, that would be helpful. The electrical panel, I think we discussed that before, was put up on kind of like a billboard size wooden panel that you could see from, it would be like off the Southeast Expressway. We thought that was a little bit overdone. So we've met with Paul. Steve was there last week to try to downsize the structure, yet meet the code requirements to get the meter, the electrical box, whatever else we need on there. So they met the other day. They've got that thing sized down considerably. We're trying, Alicia, one of our board members, is working with a carpenter now to get that constructed, which we hope will be up by next week. We're going to keep it on the same area, so we don't have to go over the road or trench the road. I think we still have to do that for the gas connection. I don't think there's a way to avoid that. But that's where we are on the electrical and the gas. I don't know if Paul is on, or Steve, if you want to add anything to that. You were on site with Paul. Maybe you can update on any other items relative to the construction.
Sure. Just, we did pay the National Grid last week, so that should hopefully start the clock and get them moving on things. So and Paul and the electrician will follow up with them to get that scheduled when they come out. But again, we could have this up and running without having the generator working. Paul would just have to provide the backup service. So if it gets down to that point for waiting for something like that, that wouldn't hold it up. And as Tom said, the electrical panel would come up with we think for our residents here, a much better solution, not as standing out as much. So we're just trying to get that situated and finalized.
Okay, and on the agreement, we did make, Steve and I sat down with our attorney and went through some revisions to that based on the last meeting that we had with you guys. So we made some minor revisions. I have a red line copy and a clean copy that we can send to you after this meeting for your review and comments. That reflects the removal of a couple of clauses that were still in there related to the easement. I think the only thing that we're waiting on is, and I don't know if you still need this, but there was a clause in there in an operations manual. Now, I don't know if you need that anymore because we're going to own the unit and be responsible for its maintenance and any repairs that are necessary. So I don't know if you need that owner's manual, but if you do, I'll get after Paul and Sean to get that. If you don't need it, then we can deal with that. So I think those are the only things you can see the other things that we've marked, and we can get that to you after this meeting.
And this owner's manual would be for the actual individual grinder pumps?
No. This is an owner's manual, I guess, for the pump and the generator and the electrical
okay.
panel for this gravity-based pump. So
I don't know. Dan and Brian, what do you guys think?
I don't think it needs to be elaborate. I do think there needs to be some type of protocol or listing as far as scheduled service, inspection, and emergency response. So, I mean, really, I think something, in a 2-page format that you're going to be following, just so the board has something
Okay.
to go by as far as the servicing and maintenance of the station. I think that would be recommended.
Okay.
I don't know, Brian?
Okay, we'll get on that. So when you get this, you won't see that, but I'll follow up with Paul and Sean to get that done.
Yeah, we just want to make sure there's sufficient maintenance so that the station remains reliable.
Yep. Okay,
The same thing goes for the generator as well. A lot of times those just are purchased and sit there, but they do need regular servicing as well.
yeah, well, we all get our generators serviced on an annual contract, so we'll add this to that process.
Yeah. And then there's the only other aspect would be the air release valve too on the property. That needs to be maintained.
Okay.
Now, if necessary, couldn't you use propane instead of the natural gas from NSTAR or from them for your generator?
I suppose so, but if the tank is bigger than the billboard, I might have a problem with my neighbors.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
There are places like Wheelwright Farm that almost everybody is putting a generator in their individual units and stuff, and they're fairly good size to handle probably the pump that's there. And they are about 4 feet tall and 30 inches around.
Yeah, that's about what ours is. The generator's on site. We just need to get it all hooked up, and that we have paid the natural gas. That's how ours run here on the backup on the gas for the generator. So I think it'll be consistent with that. So hopefully it won't be that big a delay. And also, as I said, in emergency, Paul could have someone come over and pump here if we had power outage. We haven't been connected, but hopefully that won't get to that point.
Do you guys have any connections with National Grid, Brian or anybody that could throw in a call?
So just one thing on this is the first I've heard about the generator. I mean, obviously we need a generator, but the service connection, obviously we paved the road. We have a 5-year moratorium on the street. Are you requiring a
This is
service?
on our street.
This is on our private way.
Okay, all right.
It's up
good.
here and going across the street up here, the top of the hill.
Yeah, so I have a liaison to National Grid. I can I can start an email chain, or if you want to send me an email, I can forward
Yeah,
it to them.
I'll send you, Brian, what we got from them in the bill and communication. That'd be great. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Nope, that's the update for now.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we have an update from CJC. I don't know who wants to take lead on that.
Is Mark still on?
I am just. I'm trying to start the video and it's not letting me start the video. Oh, there I am. I came in the other video machine, but, well, the folks, at Cohasset Associates have been working on the site. I can tell you that, we've had, Brad Picard from our office has been out there, as needed and as requested by Cohasset Associates. And pump station number 1 is operational. It is discharging, as we speak today, to the sanitary line out in Route 3A, the gravity line. And I believe, and George and Donald, you can confirm, I believe, building number 390, pump station number 2 and number 3 are ready to come online, very shortly.
So you're saying 380 is active?
I'm told it is active as of this morning.
Did anyone, Dan, did you inspect that before it went active?
No, no notification of a startup for that one.
Yes, we did.
For startup?
Well, we had it. You made inspections apparently for all of the work, right? You had someone down there a week or so
Well,
ago. when
Yeah,
they-
I mean, not for all the work, no.
Well,
So Dan,
Yeah.
you weren't informed of starting up?
A startup test, no.
well,
Not
you
for
were-
380. We went through a 390 startup protocol.
All right, George or Donald, can you speak to that?
You had Williamson out.
Well, I went down as to check everything out, and Dan's man was there the day before to check out everything. We had a question about the metering device flow meter that came up, and they wanted to use a temporary one until the one from the manufacturer that we spec'd would come in, of which time they would change it out. And that was all set up at that point to be able to have flows go through it. And they were doing testing, pressure testing that day and the next day. So this isn't a surprise that building 380 is either on or is able to get on.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, Wayne, it was just, we usually attend a scheduled startup test. Usually that's what Williamson, they go through all the routines, the alarms, and we never received notification regarding the startup test. We've been out there to do periodic inspection, but not, this is new to me as far as it actually being up and running.
Right, but Williamson is the person, the firm that did the startup. Apparently, because that's who I understand is
Wayne?
in that part. Go ahead.
Hi, George Morgan. So Williamson has installed a temporary 331 Schneider panel because of the inability for us to receive the new custom panels for both 400 and 380. They came out the other day. The pumps had been installed for quite some time. We did our vacuum test on the interim manhole. We did the water, static water test on the pump chamber. And Williamson came out, let me think, yesterday, the day before yesterday, put the temporary panel on, and at this point, the changeover was made, the piping, the grease traps had all been inspected. One of them had repairs. The repairs were completed yesterday. So 380 is temporarily running. Williamson, when they come up and put the final panel in along with the flow meter, when it comes, will do a formal startup on that panel, just like they did on 390. That's the status.
So I guess I'm kind of a flummoxed on this because I don't really know. I know that Wayne was out there last week doing some things on the flow meters and things, but I didn't know if we're starting. So I think we have to be a little bit more clear, or a lot more clear on when things are starting up and when the tests are going to be confirmed. So we are all in the same loop on this, because I certainly didn't know.
Well, I again will tell you, the testing was monitored by both Dan's office and Tetra Tech, the testing that was required pre-startup. So the temporary startup was, as far as I knew, everyone was on board with that.
Yeah, and in terms of the tanks and the other testing, I would agree with that. Everything's gone pretty well. Even the tank inspections, the tanks appear to be in pretty good shape, generally speaking. I believe Pam, she's on as well. I believe Pam witnessed that, and she can probably attest to the tank condition as well. It's just, again, typically we have a startup that goes through to make sure that, all alarms working, the pumps are running correctly, the flows are correct, and we haven't had that yet. I understand Wayne was out there, and maybe they construed that as a temporary, startup. But we still have to, theoretically, we still have to go through that with Williamson to make sure that, the panels and the pumps are working properly.
Yep.
And not knowing that they started this discharge, I know, the building inspector as well as Pam wanted to know that as well, and I'm not sure if they were informed, but that transition from septic to discharging to the sewer, typically that notification would go around to the other departments as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if John Hallen was informed, but I didn't know that either. And George, the contractor said that they were going to submit reports about the tanks. Did you ever get those? And could you forward them to my office?
They were sent directly to you, Pam, for 380.
Oh, really? I didn't see them.
Yep, that's the notification I got from them. Says right on there. I'll be happy to forward them again.
Yeah, if you would mind forwarding to me, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And I personally informed the building inspector, Mr. Hallen, that the 380 line was active.
When did you do that, Jeff?
Friday.
Is that when it was started?
That's when I was told it was started. So that's the day that I sent John the message and he responded.
Yeah, it actually was.
My understanding, he's out until Thursday. It sounds like it was miscommunication here, and I guess the real question is well, number one, I think it's probably a good thing that it's flowing since the status of the 380 system is pretty poor. But anything that we can do to basically have this inspection occur. I think that's probably what we should be talking about, just to make sure that you're comfortable with the alarms and so forth, Dan.
Yeah, is 390 also running? At this
Yes.
time too? Yeah.
Yep,
So the only one that's not running is 400?
that's correct, because we decided not to try to do anything temporary there because of the fact that the BioClear system's operating in good condition. And there's no need to do it temporary there. We'll just wait for the permanent panel to come.
I'm gonna just add, I think there has to be a way of tightening up the communication. I mean, I don't like to be informed of something after it's occurred, and I would prefer, I mean, it's a fait accompli as far as I'm concerned right now, but I think that in the future, as of a minute from now, I think that we need to have crystal clear communication to all parties involved in this at the same time as to what's going on, what's happening before it happens. That's just my opinion.
Well, I can tell you this, that I informed Dan that we were going into final construction of the 380 system last week. I forgot which day it was. So it should be of no surprise to anybody that the work was being performed.
Yeah, final construction, you did notify me, and I understand that. It's just, again, typically we will have a startup test before the system's actually activated, and we receive no notification of that.
Totally understand, Dan. It was just a matter of, in order to do the switch over, it was not something that we had days to do. We had hours to do it. All photographic evidence. So, it's been done properly. I'll be happy to show you everything we've got, but again, we were kind of surprised that Jake didn't come down.
Yeah, again, no notification that the startup was occurring.
Notification of final construction is notification to me.
Yeah, not to me.
So
In any case, on the septic system decommissioning, was that also done as far as the septic tank, or? what's the status?
We're not going to do that till spring, Dan, because this was an issue to get the paving done.
Yep.
And because the plant's closing on the 10th, and they're out there doing the temporary, the binder right now, so we can take down the fence and get the striping done, hopefully before it snows.
Yep.
So-
Is that fine with you, Pam? That's really in your domain.
Yeah, the springtime is fine, but again, as long as we, formally find out when in advance and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, now it's not an emergency situation. And Pam, well, you probably didn't see the report. I'm sorry you didn't see it, but there was the grease trap that was in front of the Dunkin' Donuts, which hasn't seen any water in it for probably 6 or 7 years, did have a repair that was required, and it was completed yesterday. They
Okay.
put two new covers on. You'll see this in the report. We put 2 new covers on the grease trap, and it was the pipe had corroded on the inside. We replaced that. So, and it's presently plugged because there's no reason to have any discharge coming from it anyway. And the other 2 grease traps were in good shape completely.
Okay, thank you.
I'll send that stuff to you. They've got photos and what have you.
Okay.
So similar to what we did with Route 3A, we'll provide a package of all daily reports, submittals, photographs, other logs, and we'll submit that to the commission. Similar to what we did for 3A in that project. And 3A will be final paved in the spring to clear out or to close the MassDOT access permit work.
Mark, did you have anybody go down and inspect the work by 380 in the last week or so?
We did. We had Brad Picard on site.
Okay.
We have daily reports. We have photographs.
Fine.
We have
Yeah.
the logs. We have the test results, the water test results for the structures.
I think we're making too much of this because everything I saw was excellent. I was happy, surprised that using people that are professionals with, Williamson and stuff. And if they probably had to make 10 or 20 or 30 different adjustments in order to even get this so that it's going to run properly. You're going to have someone come down and have to watch that whole thing until such time that they have it the way it should be. And then they can come down and say, well, you should change this or do this. I just think that method or what we did is not a problem. It's what you would expect. And I think they've done a good job with it. So
Okay, anything else on CJC?
I do have a question. So the folks at Cohasset Associates are having some troubles with the flow meter device, the precision instruments. And I have a question, and this is more of a technical question, is that what, you know, the meter that's, the device needed to record flows is precision instruments, and it will record the daily flow and the average daily flow. They'll record, and it's a cumulative flow meter. So it reads 10 gallons a day. I'm just using numbers. 10 gallons a day today, 10 gallons tomorrow, 10 gallons the next day, or 11, and so forth. So you got a total. You'll get a total flow for the month, similar to a water meter or a period. The question I have is that a different device would be needed that would have to record data to get a peak hourly flow. And the question I have is that the system is designed on average daily flow from Title V. So how would the commission, or how would the town use data collected for peak hourly flow? What is the purpose of that? Providing this information is it's truly a financial hardship for Cohasset Associates for this other device. It's very expensive, and I'm not sure there's benefits to gathering this data and how it would be used by the town to monitor this system, and for any downstream effects downstream at the next pump station at Tupelo Road.
Yeah, the original agreement, detailed it for peak flow. At that point in time, I believe it was envisioned that you'd have a single pumping station, gravity flow to a single pump station, and then pumping into the system. So I think from the perspective of, multiplying it times 3, that was not anticipated, but, the peak flow was going to be utilized basically to help detect any wet weather influences that might be emanating from the site. You have a big expansive gravity collection system. From the perspective of it's not new, it's not brand new in some cases. There's several tanks, that could potentially be adding II into the system. So from the perspective of having that peak hourly flow, that enabled the town to evaluate the flow base to see if there were II influences and something that could be addressed or need to be addressed. There was also a concern is the Veterans Pumping Station has a limited capacity. It's probably running about a third of its capacity at the current time before the flows were connected from this site. So there was a concern that maybe the pumping rate would be a concern in terms of the pumping station being able to handle the flow. And that actually got, that concern actually increased a little because now you have 3 different pumping stations, all with similar capacity that could be pumping at the same time. And if they all pumped at the same time, that flow would actually probably exceed the capacity of the Veterans Pumping Station.
Well, let me just interject there. So each pump station, if I'm not correct, will pump, if they all pump it at the same time, you're looking at about 2,100 gallons each cycle. So each pump station roughly pumps 600 to 700 gallons a cycle. So multiplied by 3, so you're looking at about 700 gallons if they all kick on at the same time, which is highly unlikely. So that's 2,100 gallons a cycle.
Now,
And the overall flow from this property is around 17,000 gallons a day by Title V numbers.
Mark,
We'll probably see something a little less than that Title V numbers because they're usually a factor of safety in those numbers. So where I'm driving at, since we're at the 3 pump stations today, and the Cohasset Associates is committed to provide average daily flow data and peak daily flow. They'll read the meter every day, and they're going to provide that on a quarterly basis. Having peak hourly flow submitted 3 months later or 3.5 months later, how is that going to help the town run their system? Because
I mean,
this
if we have a
16,000,
problem,
this 16,000 gallons that generated from the site is going to Tupelo Road on a gravity system with no other connections at this time. And it's going to get washed with other gravity system lines coming into Tupelo Road. So the volume of water is one could say, yeah, it's significant, but it's not going to come all at the same time. In
yeah, again,
residential.
if AI influences,
It'd
you
be
know, those
similar
pumps to
to-
be running longer or activate more frequently as well. And the
Well-
thing is, if you added up the capacities of the 3 pumps, they're running what, somewhere between 70 and 90 gallons per minute. I mean, even at 70, that's 210 gallons per minute. Capacity of the station is only 240 gallons per minute. And like I said, it's already has an extensive collection system. And it's running at, you know, a third of its capacity, and that too will have its peak flows as well. So, I mean, it's a safety measure for us to try to determine if we have issues with the, you know, surcharging in the wet well, alarm conditions, to try to track it down and try to resolve it.
Dan,
That was the intent in the agreement.
Dan, does it make sense to just have a monitoring device in the last manhole going down the highway? Certainly there's availability of measuring that flow that would consist of all 3 pump stations, obviously, and it would pick up any other I&I and stuff. And is
Yeah,
that
the reason we put it in the original agreement is in anticipation that there was going to be a single pump station. Is a mag meter is a very accurate means of, you know, measuring flow. Before it leaves the property, it's all gravity flow.
Right.
And although you can put in different flow measuring devices and plumes and other things to, you know, increase the accuracy, it still tends to be a fairly inaccurate measure, you know, in terms of flow.
Let me just speak to II. So infiltration. This area, you had leaching systems there. So one would not put a leaching system where you had high groundwater. And the pipes were all inspected. They're all SDR 21. They're pressure rated. You tested the tanks, right, for infiltration. You had a witness. You had a water test in there. All the tanks are watertight, and you're above groundwater level. So the infiltration into the system, the chances or the risk is very, very small. You are above the groundwater. And
What's the
correct
groundwater
me,
level on site?
George, if I'm not mistaken, have you seen any groundwater in the excavations on site?
Can I interject something? And then I'm going to give it, this is coming from somebody who's not, I have a hard time spelling engineer, let alone knowing what you guys are all talking about. But all of us have been on board with the development of the contract for what, 1.5 to 2 years. My simple mind is saying that the Cohasset Associates negotiated the contract in good faith, as did we. And that was included. That was signed for. It was actually initialed underneath that page. And now we're coming back and saying, no, we don't want to do it. I don't know. All of the reasons pro and con sound very valid to me, but they should have been surfaced 1.5 years ago. Why agree to something and then not do it? Is my statement.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just asking the question, why and what benefits would the town gather from having data collected based on a peak hourly flow?
I can't answer that. The only thing I
don't
can
know.
say to you is that is why we have Dan Copeland on as our engineer. He's our expert witness in these events.
Okay, fair. I wasn't part of the agreement, decision-making on that. I'm just asking the question right now on behalf of Cohasset Associates, looking at it. It was a condition. It's in the document. It's in the agreement. Maybe it wasn't truly vetted out during the discussion time for the reasoning behind it. Dan presented some points about Tupelo Road. I gather that. But most systems work on an average daily flow basis for private systems.
Folks, could I just interject one thing? And that is, so originally, when this agreement was drafted, we didn't know whether it was going to be a gravity system going down 3A or a force main. Now, if it was a force main, obviously you'd put the mag flow meter at that point, as Dan has previously stated. Now we've got 3 custom pump stations which have totalizers in them. No, it does not give you peak hourly flow. The addition of the equipment that we found out after the fact, in order to make this, each one of these stations record the information that you want, is an additional $20,000 per station. Number 2, just this is a question. Is there any other system in town that has flow meters on them? And that's the end of
I
my.
mean, I think we had this discussion once before though, but I mean, we had a remote station, which was the old hotel, the Cohasset Cove. And that pump station used to have a chat recorder, which essentially would do the same thing. It would provide circular chats that recorded peak flow.
Yep.
So have we done that before? Yes. In
Are they
terms
putting
of,
one on the new one?
they don't need it on the new one.
Oh. Is the Cook Estate putting one on?
That's a grinder pump system.
Okay, so is ours. All 3 of them.
Yep.
So is the Cook Estate putting a flow meter in?
No,
They have a
that-
lot more
that doesn't-
discharge than we do.
That doesn't go to the veteran station, that goes down to the gravity system. So that's a different animal. It's not flow limited. Regardless, I mean, in terms of this provision, we had design plans that had the provision on the plans. What happened to that? Because we approved the plans with the provisions for that peak flow element. I mean, it doesn't seem like the panels were ordered with that element, or was something else wrong?
I defer to Mark on that one.
The panels were provided to read average daily flow on the original. We revised that after our discussions with you, Dan, to provide that alternative data logging device. I don't remember the exact name, model number, but it was, we call it for a PD, the original was PD 6200. The second version, which is data logging, which basically has a computer system in there, was PD 9000.
And that was not provided with the control panels?
It was provided on the second, the submission of October 12th.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual control panels that were ordered and put into service. Yeah, the one,
390 currently has PD 6200.
so it has what you designed for it?
It does. It has for what we designed for it. It
And
does
that
not. It does not have the ability to provide average. I'm sorry, not average. Peak hourly flows. Because
Okay,
to
well,
get
that's
that, you
what
need
was-
to get peak hourly flows. You need some form of a data logger, basically a small computer to
Okay, so the plans were incorrect in that they were providing that function?
This one we submitted on I believe it was
The
August
approved plans.
9th. We submitted and it was
Approved plans.
approved. And it was approved by the commission. It
And
did
that
not
one-
have that capability to data log.
Okay, but it did have a peak flow provision
It
in
does,
there.
it does. Yeah, it does have the ability to read peak flows. Well, you have to manually read that peak flow, and it does have, you can, with that accumulative device, measuring flows over a period of time, you can develop an average daily flow by dividing the number of days, similar to a water meter, as I understand it from the manufacturer.
Okay, so that reading couldn't be read daily as well? It's not
It can be
recorded
read
at all?
manually, it can be read manually by his Cohasset Associates. And the last time I spoke with Mr. Donald Stasko, he was willing to do that and read it manually.
to get a peak flow
To get a peak flow for the day, yes.
for the day. Okay, now, I believe your plan said peak hour. That's the confusion I'm having. Plan said that it had the capabilities for peak hour recording, and that function was wrong, or that.
It allowed for peak rate of flow. The plans does not say peak hourly flow.
Okay.
What did we add, Dan? What did we ask for?
I believe it was peak hour. I'd have to go back and look at the agreement language.
It was a variety of things, including average daily flow, peak hourly flow. And I had that document handy.
And the approved design plans
It
more or
is-
less implied
it
that that
is-
function was
Yeah,
gonna be.
guys, 1 second. I think it's best, we can go back to the contract and look in that, because that's probably the only real document we need to focus on. But I would like you to go, Dan, and see exactly what the stuff is. The only reason I'm trying to push it a bit, we've got a couple more things we have to do, and I've got to get off soon. So, and there's only 2 of us here today. So, if you could do that, Dan, and perhaps speak, maybe open up a connection with Mark and just see exactly what's going on. And then, but I think at the end of the day, I don't mind having a refinement of the negotiations that we agreed to. However, I don't like being told that we're going to do this because it's not there. It is there. So I would like to at least figure out how we're going to do this and have us agree to something if it's necessary. And if the engineers on our side of the fence say, yes, we could do something, I'm open to doing that, but I don't want to be told we're going to do it because we don't want to do it. That's a violation of the contract.
I've never said that we were doing something. I was just simply asking the question.
Okay.
I'm
So,
raising concern on Cohasset Associates because they're putting another device in there is very expensive, and it is $60,000 in that range. So it's a question: is the town going to benefit from this?
I don't have any idea. I could honestly tell you, I have no clue. So, but I'm going to go to the engineer, our engineer, and ask him to research this and then to come back to us and tell us one way or the other if this is doable. If not, we're very early into this contract, and we're making changes to it. And we're just trying to do what we're supposed to do on this side of the fence. But I don't have a problem looking at it, and if it is something that the town can live with without having any adverse effect, then I would say let's look at it.
And we do appreciate that, Bill. We're Mark's asking a question, but we will be what ultimately we think we would like is for the commission to consider agreeing to revise that specific aspect of the contract. So
this is the first that it has been as
Yeah, I know.
fluently described
Yep.
and said. It's been all this sort of 3 or 4 people coming to us at different angles saying, well, you can't do this, we don't want to do this, and we don't need, and we, the town of Cohasset, don't need it. No. If you want to come to us and say, look, we cannot do this. Is there a way that we could renegotiate this and do it in such a manner that it's not going to have an adverse effect on the town? Absolutely. Why wouldn't we think about it? That's not what has been taking place over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, well, I can't speak to that. What I look at is the contract. I look at the regulations. I see that the regulations don't require peak hourly flow for any property in the town of Cohasset. This agreement does. We understand that is what we agreed to. And we're asking for reconsideration of that. That's all.
It's a totally different presentation. And I would say that that's easily done. We should look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move on now to One Pleasant?
Okay, so I'm here on behalf of One Pleasant. I don't really have.
I gotta stop you for a second. We're not going to be able to talk about it, and I'll tell you why. Paul Kearse has some sort of federal inspection on his plant that's ongoing right now, a surprise thing. Wayne is going to recuse himself because he is a property owner in the town of downtown Cohasset. So I'm sorry, but we just can't get into it right now. We'll schedule either for another meeting, perhaps next week. We could do something if you want, or in 2 weeks.
So this is news to me. So
I
So
just
Wayne-
happened. I mean, it
Wayne is
happened-
recusing himself as a property owner?
I-
Wayne, has this ever happened before for Central District properties involving you? I don't.
No, but, I guess I'm certainly, being on the board this, 15 years or so, there's anything that's happened in the village that doesn't affect me. I don't know.
I mean,
whether-
I don't have any issue with you participating. If that's, I would never think that you would have a conflict of interest or that that you couldn't act objectively. So if you're asking if I have an issue, I don't at all. I mean, it's not as if the board is being asked to vote on anything. This is apparently a discussion, and I'm looking for answers as was outlined in my letter. Once we have answers, then I think then we would go to the next step, and there would probably be some kind of application and a vote at that time.
Okay, I want to participate in it if I'm able to, without having it have any repercussions in the future, because of what I know about the different buildings, the different things that have happened and stuff like that, that may not get picked up by someone else, meaning, Dan Coughlin or someone else. So,
Greg, can you weigh in?
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Corbo, Town Council. This is the first that I'm hearing about this conflict issue as well. So I'm not really prepared to give a full opinion on it. And Wayne, I'd certainly be happy to, talk to you about the details of your situation so that you can make a fully informed decision. It's not just a matter of whether or not the particular applicant objects or assents to you participating. If you're participating in something that you're prohibited from participating in under Chapter 268A, the state conflict of interest law, you can be subject to financial penalties. So, it is something I would recommend that you take seriously, and I'd be happy to talk to you about those facts. The mere fact that you live in the Central District may not be dispositive of whether or not you have a conflict. So we should talk about that, but we could proceed this morning in one of two ways. If Wayne is not going to participate, obviously you don't have a quorum, you don't have the ability to make any decisions, but we can still have a general discussion of the matter. It's just that Paul doesn't get the benefit of having that discussion, and he may be one of the only other members who participate. So it's up to you. We can either have a general discussion this morning, or we can postpone this to the next meeting. I'll leave that up to you.
I don't mind about general. I just, I was just connecting the dots as to what I heard. So I don't, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Well, it would be quite a one-way discussion between me and you, Bill. I see no reason to have a discussion until we've kind of vetted this issue. I concur with you 100%, Bill. But I would ask, I mean, I think that there have been various properties, kind of one of the points, the underlying points of the letter that I had written is that I don't see, I'm struggling to connect the dots with the way the town has handled a situation similar to this in the past and the way the thrust of this conversation is going. It appears as if it's a little different. And so I had asked I think Wayne has some good insight. Wayne has been on the board. He's voted on many matters involving properties in the village district for other businesses. He's familiar with the procedures, and I think that this is, in a sense, almost more of a question of how are you going to move forward? What's your policy? What are your regulations say? What's the basis for assessing a betterment in the first place for properties that are already connected? Those are questions that I was asking answers for. And if the board doesn't want to discuss it or answer it, that's, that's fine. Just let me know, and I'll assess at that point.
Bill, through you to Attorney DeLisi, thank you for that. I am prepared to give you an explanation of where the board is now and why, its policy is what it is. I think the only question is whether it's appropriate to be doing that today, or whether we should wait until the next meeting when Paul is here.
Well, I think that it's more not just where it is and why is it here. It's where you're going in the future. What's fair across the board for all of the property owners, not just my client. I mean, I see Mr. Lubitz on the call. I know that he has a property, on the harbor, and this discussion probably affects that as well. So it's more of a question of policy moving forward, and my questions about the basis in the rules and regulations and how we get there were more to drive the point of, hey, please don't treat this property differently than you've treated other properties in the past, and explain the basis, in black and white. And I would ask Greg if you can look at the kind of the distinction between rules and regulations and policies, because my understanding of policies is that they're there to implement the rules and regulations or to give guidelines and focus on the rules and regulations, but it's not as if the policy could go above the four corners of what the regulation says. So it's matters like that. And I know that the commission is looking at adopting modifications or new rules and regulations. I believe I was provided with a copy of a draft recently, and this is the type of conversation that the commission might benefit from before it actually adopts those changes. Thank you.
All right, well, I think we should move it. I would like to just add one sort of final statement. I've been on the board for, I think, almost 14 years now. I don't certainly have the engineering acumen that Wayne does, but I don't think we've treated anyone differently in my time with the board, because this, as you can see by looking at your Zoom feed and other things here, there's just way too many eyes on us, and so it'd be foolhardy for us to do that.
No, please don't. I would never. I'm not characterizing the board as having some plan to treat us differently than anyone else. Okay, like, please don't mistake that at all, Bill. I provided the board with a couple of letters and that indicated how it's kind of dealt with a similar situation in the past, right across the street, for instance. And so I'm using that as basically saying, hey, I'm not sure you're connecting the dots or aware of the fact that that's what has happened, and I'm trying to understand why we're different. I'm not saying that you're acting in a manner that's not honest or.
All right. So I think it just the only thing left to do is to see whether or not you want to wait 2 weeks, or should we, try to do a special thing next week if that's necessary, or how do you want?
No, there's no time urgency on this. So 2 weeks is fine. There's no reason. Yep.
We'll take care of that then.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Okey doke. So our last piece of business is 124 Elm Street. I think Ted is on. I saw him at one point.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. I actually didn't realize that this was happening today, so I'm more of an active participant here to answer questions if they arise. And I'm happy to give an update on where we are as well with our sewer work, if that would be helpful.
I don't have anything, Dan. I don't know if you do. But I think getting an update would probably be helpful to us as well.
Okay, I'll give a quick update on that. And I know Brian and Dan are also on the call, and I know our team has been working with both of you guys. You've been very helpful over the last few weeks as we move along with the work. So after the last meeting, we are moving forward with the conditional approvals for the relocation of 87 Elm Street. That's the sewer relocation. And we are hoping to get that sort of formal application in, which was never submitted. Dan, you made that point. Those are coming in as well as the sequencing work. So SLT, the site contractor, submitted over something, I think, Dan, that you provide some comments to. So they're reworking through that with Deb at Merrill. So unfortunately, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Merrill has had some email issues over the last week or so. So they're largely not available by email. And so we're having a hard time getting a hold of them. But that is in process and no work has commenced on that line until we get everything approved for that sequencing. I do know that an email came out yesterday from SLT requesting some flow calculations. And I think, Brian, you might have some information on that. If you could send that over to SLT, I think that's one piece that they're missing.
Yeah, so per Dan's suggestion, we do have master meter flows, but they need to be manually downloaded at the plant, and I've requested Scott Papa to do that. But just generally the area that flows through the pipe that you're relocating, it's roughly, and again, this is just going on kind of our GIS system, it's roughly like 120 homes that flow through there. So you have Summer Street, Black Horse Lane, and then everybody, south and east of going down Border Street all the way up to the Situate line at Otis. So, it includes Parker Ave, all those houses. So all the flows from those properties go through that line.
Okay. Great.
So it's not insignificant, and it's not. And again, just kind of back of the napkin, like 120 homes, if you're using Title V flows, that's, it's roughly like almost, it's just under 400 gallons a minute. That's excessive, I would say, but, that's kind of what we're looking at for Title V. And I'm sure the actual flows are much less than that, probably half.
Okay.
But barring, that meter flow we get at the plant, if I can get that data, I would say that's kind of the order of magnitude you're looking at for a bypass system.
Okay, if you do have that flow data, I think that'd be helpful. Our guys have been watching flow come through, and it sounds like from their perspective, they don't think it's a lot, and they're trying to just manage the number of trucks they get. So if you do have the actual flow data, that would be really helpful. But we should have something over for you guys to review on the sequencing plan shortly.
Yeah, and just generally on the sequencing plan, I think I agree with Dan that bypass pumping would probably be better than putting a train of trucks out there and pumping from the manhole, because that could be, you could be doing a lot of pumping there for a long time. So I think a bypass pumping system would make more sense.
Okay, I think there's a cost issue with that we're trying to deal with budget constraints. And I think that bypass system is quite expensive to put in place for a short-term project like this. But that's one consideration we're just struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can put it however you want in the sequence of events on how to make the connections and that. But we can go through options on that.
Okay, thank you. And then across the street, the update, one of those sewer manholes has been, the one on the north side has been put into position. And I know, Dan, they've been working with you on that work as well. And then with respect to the connection point, I guess at the point of the triangle of 124, they've, I don't know if they've placed the pipe, but they've trenched everything out and got it down to the point. And I believe there's a comment, Dan, that you wanted, or you recommended that run be encased in concrete. And I've been talking to Deb, who has a slightly different opinion on that, and I'm trying to balance what we should do there. You know, it is Schedule 80 pipe, which I've been told is pretty much bulletproof and a very solid pipe system. But we also do want to recognize that it's going underneath the foundation of the building. We're hoping to get this put in place soon so we can continue with the foundations. And I wanted to ask, would you be okay if we just did it below the footings? Encase it in concrete?
Yeah, I mean, my point was basically with the foundations, I mean, you could also put in a sleeve, you know, the ductile line sleeve or something underneath the foundation. That might be a better alternative. We don't want to have differential settling on that pipe. It's plastic. It can still shear and it can still crack. You know, the solvent welding is typically okay, but you know, it can, if it's not done properly, you know, not cleaned and not used with heavy set, it can sometimes separate over time as well. So we're just trying to, you know, ensure that the pipe integrity is good for a long period of time. And the other thing too is you were also going underneath the water main in a couple of locations, and it looked like you had an 18-inch offset now. Before you didn't, so obviously that would provide added safety for the water. But I mean, if Deb wants to come back and submit a different alternative or some other methods, we're certainly willing to consider that.
Okay, I'm trying
on the encasement.
So I mean, we're trying to get this work done tomorrow. I mean, I'm okay encasing the entire thing in concrete. I'm also okay doing it under the footing. I'm just trying to also balance recommendations of our engineer versus you, and you know, sort of what is required versus what is recommended here, given that it's on our property and that's our connection into the sewer main. So I mean, I'm trying to just figure out how to close this out. I mean, do you have a strong preference on the concrete encasement or just under the footing?
The footing was my biggest concern underneath the
Okay.
building through the two footings that you had. You know, PVC pipe, even the Schedule 80 isn't made to have a bearing pressure on it. And from what I understood, the pipe was going to be in the bedding stone underneath the footing.
Yes, it will.
Which is even worse, because then you're going to have the footing directly bearing on that. You know, so that's why even with encasement, it would be okay, but that could shift and that could bend. You know, the pipe, I think might be better served with a piece of, you know, ductile iron pipe or something like that as a sleeve in the footing area.
Okay.
That might be preferred, but I haven't heard from Deb, and you know, I'm certainly willing to talk to her about it and see what she has. You know, I also mentioned that it may be a concern for the building department as well. But I don't know if I didn't see a response back on that end.
What length, Dan, of ductile iron pipe would you consider? Something that's just 4 or 6 feet long, or something that's going to be longer than that, so that they could put the other pipe in it?
Yeah, I mean, what we normally do is we'll assume a 45-degree bearing angle from the footing, the base of the footing. So wherever that extends on the pipe should be sleeved. If you follow that.
So what's the answer? I mean, their footing is probably
I don't,
4 feet.
yeah, I don't know how wide the footing is in that area. It's 2 feet. You know, and how deep the pipe is below that. You know, it may be as simple as you know, a 6-foot sleeve.
Now, is the footing already in there, Ted? In other words, is that concrete wall already there, or is it going to be poured after the sewers goes in?
No, it's going to be poured after the sewer.
Okay, so it would make sense that you could just lay that in. Otherwise, wouldn't it just be easier to pour concrete over the pipe?
Well, that's what I'm prepared to do tomorrow.
So that's gonna take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm ready to go on that.
Assuming that you're gonna be below the footing rather than above the footing.
Yes.
So it wouldn't shear off.
Yeah. Brian, did you have any input? I know you originally liked the idea of the concrete encasement too, but I didn't know from what perspective.
Yeah, they both work for me. I mean, the sleeve, what you're talking about, doesn't put any force on the pipe. The concrete encasement basically will be, kind of diverting the force to whatever the footing is below the pipe, right? But it also, if the entirety of that concrete shifts, then you could have some shear, like you're saying. But either one works, and I think if in the interest of time, I think putting it in concrete encasement in that area seems, because the loading of the building, if I remember correctly, is just like some decking footings over the top, which is not, it's not the entire load of, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 stories there, but it's more of the deck load, I think, in that area.
Yeah, I don't know. But you know what the building above that would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2 to 3 story structure, but it is mostly, I mean, it's the beginning of the parking garage. The building does go up. I will say, I mean, we've had every engineer under the sun on this project, including ground improvements and somebody there from McPhail, making sure that, everything's compacted. We've been doing compaction testing, and this, I would argue, is over-engineered. I don't think it's going anywhere. So, but I know things do settle. So we also have ledge under that area as well.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, trying to move this along, I mean, Deb can certainly send me something, but if you already have your offset for the water, so you don't have to encase there, that's fine. But in terms of where you're crossing over the pipe with the footings, I would say at least in those areas and maybe, a couple of feet beyond the footing on each side, if those areas could be encased, that would be preferred. And the rest of the pipe not necessarily needs encasement unless you have a clean out or something like that. That clean out should obviously be, built up with concrete. So it doesn't break and shear.
All right, perfect. So I'll report back to the team and we'll get that moving for.
I just saw some pictures of it coming through too as well, so.
Yeah, I know Phil, you and Phil have been texting buddies recently, so he's. That was the only update I had, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so do we have any other business to talk about? Carol, anything?
The only thing that came in was Scott's email about the roof.
Oh, right.
So Brian and I were going to talk to Jennifer about that. It's just that she's crazy busy right now with the budget, so we're just going to try to schedule something with her to find out how to go about that.
So from what I understand, the delta in what we budgeted and what the new vendor says they can do was under $50,000, I believe. Between whatever we budgeted for and whatever the cost to actually put the new roof in. I think we have that in cash that we can just, utilize.
Yeah, but the price is 30,000 or something, right? Is what they're saying.
Yep, 28.
Yeah, but I don't know what we actually, so we voted on this to replace the roof, during the summer, at some point, and I don't know what that number was. I don't remember.
Oh, what was the first number? I thought it was like $12,000 or something.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I thought there was like a 25, no more than 50,000 delta between what we approved and what the new number is. And I mean, but it's also a no choice problem situation. We got to get it fixed.
Right. The question is there anybody else that would put in an estimate at this time of the year? And
I don't know. And again, I think with Scott's issue was the snow load and all that kind of stuff. So I'd hate to have the roof leak or worse sometime in January.
Yeah, I think if it's an emergency, if that's kind of the way we're going, then obviously you get it repaired. But I think Jen, being new and the new finance director, is still getting her handle on the capital budget process, and anything you know, she's kind of looking at the rules, and anything over $10,000 and lasting more than 18 months goes to capital budget committee for review prior to spending. So I think that's kind of where she's coming from right now. And I think, I don't know if we had an email chain with Mike Dick on this one, or it may have been a water issue, but you know, they're open to discussing things in the short term if you need to get their opinion on something. But
Yeah, I think it's very, yeah, go ahead, sorry. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brian, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll just say we'll get with Jen in the next couple of days and you know, just talk to her about the values of what we're talking about, you know, 30,000 to 12 or 15,000. It's not that big a deal, but you know, I just don't know exactly where your budget is and what you voted in. I'll have to look at last town meeting's vote and see what the delta is.
Yes, so Carol, maybe you could look and see what we did on that, and
Yep,
particularly, I don't think we actually sent it to the capital committee, but I know we've done emergency approvals in the past, you know, giving them why and, you know, the reasoning and what have you, and I don't think we've had an issue with them, particularly for this number, but yeah, if you can figure that out, and then and maybe certainly let's get this on the agenda for the next meeting and have Scott come to it as well.
okay,
And again, if we're in the point where we're leaking and, you know, we need to get it fixed right away, just go with the repair if you're happy with the quote.
Yeah. I think we'll make that, we can make that decision next week when we talk to Scott.
We could do a quick repair for where it is leaking, if in fact it's leaking, because the proposal for the 28,000 is to strip it all, put new insulation and put a new roof there.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Yeah, so.
But that's something we can go over with Scott and make it, you know, we can vote on it and you know, do the proper thing, so.
I'll be happy to go over and see Scott if you want to also.
Yeah, I might walk down there. I mean, I'm only 2-minute walk away from it. So
It'd be good to look at what we're
yeah,
talking.
I might do that then. Yeah. So it's always good to visit the sewer plant.
Right.
So I see Paul Caleri also on, I don't know if you had more other business, but Paul, I think, is here to talk about is it 215 or 214 Atlantic Avenue, which is near the Cunningham Bridge?
Yes, that'd be good to get an update. Or we get an update.
Well, I'll start, Paul, if you don't mind, just so give everyone a recollection. So we, the sewer commission paid, I think it was like 30 grand in non-participating costs for the Cunningham Bridge contractor to put sewer across the bridge. And it ran basically to the limits of the work excavation, but did not connect to the existing sewer system. So at that time, I think Rosano, Ross Rosano, constructed a stub on that future sewer that's in the street, but the sewer is not connected to the active collection system. So on the property that Paul's involved in, I think we need to go probably, I want to say 300 or 400 feet down the road with a 4-inch pipe to connect to the active sewer system to then activate that piece that goes up to the bridge.
Are if you're looking at the bridge from Little Harbor, are we looking at the left-hand side of the bridge in that general area?
So I think if you're going towards Sandy Beach, northbound across the bridge, and the property, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, is the one that's directly adjacent to the bridge on the east side, on that northeast side.
So the Schutz property.
Right, correct. This is the lot they spun off from the house to the right.
So the stub that we had, so basically what's going to have to happen is we have to dig the road up and put a 300 or 400 foot section in there to connect?
Well, for long range planning, what we absolutely should do, and we've been holding off paving the street and everything else, is to connect that 4-inch from the bridge to where the 4-inch pipe is, just beyond the Schutz barn there, or a little bit further. With the plan also to connect the 4-inch pipe on the other side of the bridge up to Beach Street.
So those houses that are right there on the corner, like the old Kennedy place and the one across the street from it, right at the bridge, they're not connected to sewer?
No, they are, but that's where we have to make the connection for them. But see,
Okay.
in some cases, there was just an 1.5-inch line or a 2-inch line that went from the houses, like the Schutzes are actually on an 1.5-inch line coming down off the hill. And then at the bottom of the driveway, I guess they have two plans I saw. It looks like they have one connection for the barn and the back building. Another comment on the plans, I think from Dan's plans and stuff, was that an additional Y was put at the bottom of their driveway. And the other connection went up about 100 feet further and was behind the barn going down there. And then, of course, what's gonna, let's see. It's a good question is whether or not the property on the left that they must be on sewer too. So it's
Yeah,
very
everyone out
close.
there is on sewer. I think just to
Where the
basically,
pipe size is changing.
it's a 4-inch crossing across the bridge and you want to bring that pipe all the way until you get to 4-inch. And the 4-inch piping is at the driveway that's beyond the chutes. And then on the south side, you'd have to go up to the intersection at Beach Street to get to the 4-inch, which is where that kind of big planting pot thing is.
Yeah.
So that would be the limits of the work.
When would we do this? And is this the town's nickel to pay for it?
Well, it's the sewer department's nickel.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm presuming it is if we're extending that line.
Right. Now, the other solution is for them to take and just run an 1.5-inch or 2-inch line down the shoulder of the road and connect on to where the Chutes barn is. But that wouldn't, and by the way, no permit or anything had been. The line that was put out to the street could be just abandoned and then a separate line going down. But for the long term, for what you do to do it right, you put the 4-inch pipe in. And apparently the Schutzes have been under the impression that they're going to be required to pay a portion of that, because the alternative is they would have to put their own line in going down the side of the road, which would probably cost as much, a significant amount of money. So rather than go down the side of the road, going down the center with the larger pipe would obviously make some sense, even though their connection is already in from across the street.
Yeah, I remember talking about this. So the bridge was what, 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that?
Right. No, we talked about it all during the construction of the bridge, trying to get a fair price from the contractor. And because it was an extra and all that, it was just more than what it was worth,
80,000 doesn't look so bad today, but
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I know.
that's what it was.
Was it?
I wouldn't be in favor of throwing it all in the chutes, certainly. I mean, we'd have
Not
to
at
work on that. No, not at all, no.
So I think the collection system you guys own, but obviously there's a developer who wants to develop that parcel that's out there. And if that collection system wasn't going to be expanded, they would need to do a private line down to where they could connect.
I asked quite recently from Area Brothers what if they would give a quote to do that work and whether it could be done this year. And the answer to this year was no, but I'm still waiting for the quote to get an idea of what, is it 60,000? Is it 80,000?
Yeah. Dan, do you have copies of the plans that we were thinking about, or what potentially could happen?
Yeah, Dan's gone over this, so.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have design plans, but we do have basically the copies of the construction plans for the bridge crossing.
Something like a schematic that shows where it would go.
Yeah, there really isn't that much in the roadway over there. From a design basis is really not that much that we have to show, but we could certainly put something together and show the connection and it's if we're going to just hire a contractor and go and do the work, it's probably just as easy to go and lay it out,
And just from a resiliency perspective, if you connected those dots, you would have another loop to go around Little Harbor that you don't have right now.
That's the important part.
Yeah, no, I remember talking about that, and I think at the same time, you know, as a safeguard in case something happened, certainly, but at the same time, you know, with regional, we're gonna need that anyway.
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's not full size. It's not like the other side near Jerusalem Road with the main line going down. The pipe in Beach Street is basically smaller, so it will provide some relief, but it may be difficult to take the entire flow.
Okay.
It's good for emergency base only, you know, and there should be valves on either side of that bridge installed as well, just in case we ever have any issues with that.
Yeah, and just so there is a valve on both sides of the crossing for both the water and the sewer. And just from Mr. Coleri's perspective, like if we could just do the one side, you know, for the purposes if you were just going to focus on the east side and then leave that valve closed until the west side was done. But ideally, you'd want to get that whole both sides of the bridge connected.
Yeah, if you have a contract to do it.
Yeah, wait, sorry. Brian, is there anything to do with water? I mean, would it make sense to do the water? If water has to be connected as well, would it make sense to do both at the same time?
No, they're already looped. They've been looped historically. So they got a new bridge crossing during the bridge work, but they just reconnected their water main. It goes through there.
Yeah.
There was never a sewer main across there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in favor of, you know, letting this mature and see what happens. So, you know, it makes sense to do it.
Right, so we need a plan of what we want, and I think it was gonna go right down the center of the road.
Yeah.
There's gas on the and water is on the chute side of the property.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, if you could send me the town topo for both sides, we can put a plan together pretty fast for you.
Yeah, just something schematic, you know, with some nice colors so I can figure out what's going on.
But we can use it to get some prices though, too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be good to generate a plan anyways for as-built purposes, but we can, I don't know if you can just send me the topo for that area, Brian. That way we can-
So we're having trouble with the GIS, but yeah, I can get the topo. But I mean, I'll also find the plans, the as-built for the bridge, and you know, your as-built from Little Harbor, and you can see right there how to connect the dots.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on this we need?
That was all that was on the agenda.
Okay.
But we didn't let Paul speak, but I don't know, Paul,
Oh,
do you have
sorry.
anything extra?
Thank you, everybody. No, I don't have anything further to add other than I understand that the idea of trying to continue the loop is better than having two dead ends on a sewer line, you know? So I think it would be in favor of everybody to have it connecting, run the loop.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. And
Yep, no problem.
Brian, if you could keep me in the loop on what next steps are and when the plans might go out.
Yeah, I guess I'll just ask, what's the schedule on development, or do you have one yet? Or any plans? Do you have any like plans developed?
We're trying to finalize a building package to be submitted for a permit. But it went through planning board, conservation. It was approved, both departments, both boards. There'll be some slight modification to the plan that was then, but it wasn't a full set of plans. So we're working on getting a full set of plans for a building permit. So we're, you know, maybe still a couple of months away from breaking ground realistically. And then, you know, maybe a year for construction, but the idea that we want it there and available to tie into is the goal.
Right. It'd be helpful to have even just the conceptual plans where you can see the house location and kind of services. If you have those digitally, you could email it to me and I'll email it around to the board and Dan, or for you know, as we're talking about the sewer line.
Yeah, I could definitely get you those.
Great, thanks.
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anything else?
That's it.
Very good. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
And Bill McGowan, aye.
Wayne Sawchuck guy.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.